Alright, this is going to be a video of this 42-inch Disney brand ceiling fan that I got at my local Habitat Restore. I got it because, for those who don't know, I'm actually a volunteer there, and what I do for them is refurbish ceiling fans they receive a donation and make them more sellable and run better than how they previously came in. Without any further ado here, I'm actually going to demonstrate the fan and begin with the light kit. As you can see, this does work, and I'm using a single 25-volt equivalent energy-saving compact fluorescent bulb in here. The reason I picked such a dim bulb is that it was the only CFL I had that was candle up with base. I'll turn that off. Now the fan itself, beginning with high. Now, being that this is a pretty cheap quality Hugger fan, it does have an audible startup hum to it, but once it gets going it does quiet down a little bit. Now, one thing that actually surprised me is it does push a pretty decent amount of air. I'm guessing this might be due to the fact that the blades are a little bit wider than most of these cheap Hugger fans on the market, so that would give more surface area for airflow. However, it might also be due to the fact that it uses a slightly larger motor than a lot of these cheap Hugger fans out there. And according to the instructions, it's going to spin at 210 RPM on high speed. I'm guessing that those are probably just rough estimations, as it seems a little bit faster, more like maybe 220. It might be just due to the fact that the blades, in contrast with the white ceiling, are creating a little bit of an optical illusion. But I would say those measurements aren't 100% accurate, and the fan does look to be spinning more than 210 RPM. Next, for medium. This is going to slow down to around 160 RPM, according to the instructions. Again, it does look a little bit faster than that, more like 170. And as you might hear, the fan actually has a bit of a bearing noise to it. Being that it's a cheap fan, really no surprise there. But I did put some oil in it to help things out a little bit. Seemed to kind of quiet things, slightly, but really didn't help that much. Lastly, for low speed, which I'll show with the fan and light on running simultaneously here. And once again, according to the instructions, this is going to spin at around 110 RPM. It's probably the most accurate estimation out of the three numbers they list, as the fan does indeed seem to spin at around 110 RPMs, or at least somewhere close to that. Anyway, I'm going to turn it off now. And discuss some general information on the fan itself. According to the label on top of the motor, the fan was actually imported by Home Depot, Mexico. It's not actually a Hampton Bay, as there's no reference of the brand Hampton Bay on the instructions, motor housing, or anything of the sort. There is, however, a small label that says copyright Disney Pixar that you might be able to see on the motor housing there. So that's really the only brand identification on the fan. It was actually manufactured by SMC, so it might as well have been a Hampton Bay. However, this is pretty much an unbranded fan, other than that one label that you might be able to make out there. Now, I'm guessing this was probably purchased while someone was on vacation, or maybe that the previous owners moved from Mexico, as this definitely would not have been distributed here, as there's no French labels on the fan, so it's definitely not Canadian. Anyway, now I'm going to be discussing the pros and cons of the fan, and what I would rank it out of 5 stars, beginning with the pros. As you can see here, the fan has designs of Buzz Lightyear, So it does have a pretty unique childhood charm, if you will. Now, although this was kind of made for the 4 to 8-year-old market, and I've long since grown out of that stage, I can still appreciate the fact that it probably makes some little kids quite happy, and does have some nostalgic charm, if you will. So it's definitely a cute looking fan. Another thing is it does have a unique globe to it. Not really many fans have the style of Lightyear, and I believe this might have been actually exclusive to this Disney series of fans, as they also made a few other models featuring cars and other such movies and characters. So definitely kind of a unique thing there. And also the motor housing is kind of unusual, and you might notice it has some star-shaped blade brackets. So, it is kind of interesting, even besides the artwork on the blades. What I don't like, however, is the fan is extremely cheap quality. Mounting bracket is very flimsy. As you might notice, the fan also has some star-shaped plastic pendants. Those are very poorly molded plastic that are pretty much falling apart, even though the fan, was hardly used. Very, very cheap, poor materials. Paint is already starting to scratch off. So, really, in terms of that, the fan would get a very low ranking, but purely due to the uniqueness of it, and especially the artwork of the blades, I would probably have to give it 3.5 out of 5 stars, just because it does have some charm to it. Really, the fan doesn't have much else going for it, in my opinion, other than charm and semi-decent airflow, but, I guess it's unique in its own ranking. So anyway guys, thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have some more information on this, and maybe a bit more about if these fans are distributed in Canada and the US, that would be much appreciated. So, thank you all for watching.